And we are back. For over a century, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority has championed social change, with its Bronx Alumni chapter continuing this legacy through dynamic voter education initiatives. Their social action committee is actively engaging in the Bronx community in the democratic process, from legislative programming to on-the-ground voter registration efforts. Now, by partnering with local schools, they provide in-classroom voter education as well as encourage civic dialogue. Here now, sharing more, we've got the Bronx Alumni Chapter at Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Chair of the Social Action Committee, Jennifer Lackard, and then also high school social studies teacher at Eagle Academy in the Bronx and chapter member Latonya Branch. And thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you. Good to see you. Jen, I'll start with you. Obviously, a very crucial election on the minds of Americans, but for the sorority itself, an opportunity not just to get civic engagement, but also voter registration too, huh?
Yeah, number one, thank you for having us. This is such an exciting time, exciting time in our democratic process for us, for me to be social action chair, and for the people that are working with us to kind of really press forward on the front lines. This is just exciting for all of us. But for Bronx alumni, it's in our DNA as a sorority to be doing this political activism and really working around social action and increasing civic engagement. And so in the Bronx, we just really want to get the word out. When we looked at the data, it shows that the lowest propensity of voters are in the 18 to 24 demographic. So we've been really trying to think outside of the box, because we are living in a generation now and our young people are really focused on information and data now so that they can make decisions almost in real time. So we've had to change the way we get out there and do voter registrations, how we educate everyone, and kind of rally everyone to get out to the polls.
And when you talk about engagement, really, they want the information now. They want to know what's going on now, and really to be able to wrap their heads around it and make an informed decision. What's been the response as you've been walking in this community, talking to 18 to 24-year-olds? Have they been politically aware?
Well, I guess I can speak on that. So ours, especially our students here, but of this demographic that we are centering on, they are aware of the candidates. They are aware of some of the work that they have done recently and in the past, but a lot of them don't feel like they have a voice. And so a lot of them were not inclined to register to vote or to vote if they were already registered. So part of my job has been to inform them of our electoral process and the role that they play in it. And not just in this national election, but all elections on the local and state level. And letting them know that when you guys have part-time jobs, full-time jobs, your taxes pay the salaries of these politicians, and you definitely should have your voice heard, because a lot of the things that a lot of legislation that's passed and so on and so forth, they affect them and their families. And so they should definitely play a role in this process and start practicing their civic duties now, even as teenagers.
And as this conversation is being had with these young people, and obviously you're bringing them to a level of enlightenment in some areas and some things they already know, what's the takeaway? What are you sensing from them after this conversation? Is there a level of, hey, I'm going to do this? And we all know, because sometimes there is this fall off between the time I say I'm going to do it and the time we get to the polls.
I think there's a lot of excitement. They are definitely ready to take a part, and like we said, a lot of them didn't know that they had a role to play in this. And when we tell them, like, it's your vote that counts, it's your vote that had Obama elected in that election. Their vote is very important, and I think there's a lot of excitement around it. And once they become more knowledgeable and they know the role that they play, they definitely want to play a part in it, because they are very aware of the political stance in this country right now. So they
Yeah.
definitely want to be a part of it.
And so, Jennifer, would you share a little bit more with me about the initiative really that's out there to really galvanize young people, get them to the polls, and to really have them engaged?
Yeah, so we started the voter, it's our V initiative, voter engagement, enrollment, and it's our voter and empowerment. So we wanted to really excite our young people around the importance of voting. And In order to do that, it's not just about getting people to register to vote, but it was also the education piece. And to Latonya's point, we were excited about what we did when we would do registrations. The students would come up to the table and ask questions, and then we realized there's a gap between what they know and really we could register them, and that's great. We would have numbers and metrics to show that we were able to register a large number of people in that population. The trick was, how do we mobilize them so that they find a connection? And to Latonya's point, we had to really think about short and sweet things that are out there that they can get the information to make informed decisions for themselves. And so we came across, there's a 30-minute documentary called Sabotaged and Suppressed. Suppressed and Sabotaged. And it's by Brave New Films. And it's a great film that talks around voter suppression. And we did a classroom push-in at Monroe University now that, they've just got, they changed from university recently, so that's exciting. But we were at Monroe University and we were in the classroom and we showed the video for 30 minutes. And in the beginning, the students were looking like, why are we here? This makes no connection to kind of voting. This is ridiculous. After it was over, all of the students were like, let me get the voter registration form. Like, I want to actually be a part of this process. I do not, to see the lengths that people went to suppress our vote throughout the country, I want to be a part of that process. And we were able to kind of tap into wherever the students felt the connection. Many of them were very passionate about things like transportation and housing and littering, sanitation, and just making that make sense to them in their real world. Then we started to see the activism come out, that people wanted to be there. So we then registered them, and now we have educated them. So the next piece is like, what do we do to mobilize them? And I have some treats, some of my other sorority members that'll be coming on. But that's the part. They're the fun, the meats and potatoes of how do we empower and mobilize our young people to vote.
And Latonya, before I cut the segment, and I know you got to get back to class, you got some young people to take care of yourself. But listen, let me ask you this question here about the electoral process. Our young people were somewhat uninformed about that, but after spending some time, how do you assess the people that you've come in contact with and their level of understanding the electoral process now?
I think it was a lot of aha moments where it's like, this is how a law is passed. Like years ago, you had I remember it's a PBS documentary on how a bill becomes a law. And it was almost like teaching that within 2 minutes and showing this is how you get a bill to the Senate floor. This, it has to get voted on. Like a president just doesn't just sign away things. It's like, this is, you take this law, you take this law. It's a whole process. And in order for that process to start, it starts with our vote. It starts by putting those officials that we elect in those offices to represent us. And I think a lot of young people just that part of it, they just were not aware of. Or I even had some of them say, I remember that in government class, but I didn't pay attention to it. And so now it's like putting what they've learned and putting it into the real world and we call it in school a text to world connection, and making those connections with what they've learned to the reality of it. And I think it's just really important for young people, especially, to know your vote doesn't start on the national level. It definitely starts at the local and state levels, because those are the people who are putting these bills in, listening to the people's voices, putting together the bills and having them vote on it to become a law. And just letting them know, don't stop at this election. Next year, when we have our mayoral races and different council member seats and stuff like that, that they need to become a part of that voting process as well.
Well, I want to let you get back to class. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think that they have definitely been empowered to make a decision. And thank you for the work that you're doing, Latonya Branch and Jen Lackard with us. I'm going to take a quick break, be back with more, and then coming up, we'll talk about how the Bronx Deltas are mobilizing the community to vote. We'll take a quick break right after this. And welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with the Bronx Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Chair of the Social Action Committee, Jennifer Lackard. We've also got Senior Manager of Government Relations at Lime, Nicole Yearwood, and the Director of When We All Vote, Beth Lynk, who they're going to talk about how Bronx Deltas are actually mobilizing the community to vote. And Jennifer, I do want to bring you back in and share. It's important for people to get to the polls, but if somebody can't get to the polls, that process of early voting is also something that you're tackling.
Yes, we've been driving home a series of messages this cycle. It's not just been one message. It's about encouraging everyone to, number one, see the importance of voting. The value of voting is really important. But then it's also about allowing them and giving them the tools to access other resources available to them, right? So whether that's absentee ballot, whether that's getting to the poll during early voting, we have been trying to make sure that we've opened up their access and they don't limit themselves. And earlier in the process, in this segment, I talked about our Young People's Initiative, which is really us working with local colleges in the Bronx. There were 5 colleges that we visited during this cycle, which was a short period of time. I think there was all this excitement that came in late August, and then just kind of getting the community to respond to us. And we were able to register over 120 young people to vote. So we were very excited about that because each school was an accomplishment and sort of learning as we go what they need, educating them on early voting sites. There's a different poll site that you may have for your actual election day site. Make sure you pay attention to that. We didn't want to discourage anyone from going, at least making that effort, and then not being able to close the deal. So we were doing a lot of resourcing and making sure the information got out to the people that needed it the most.
Yeah. Nicole, let me talk to you a little bit about the Lime to the Polls initiative. And what is the Lime to a Polls initiative?
Sure. So Lime is a micromobility company, and we're in almost 300 markets globally. And we're excited to actually be a partner with Vote Early Day and When We All Vote, to make sure not only that people get to the polls using our vehicles, but to also make sure that they have a plan to vote. So here in New York City, Line to the Polls is actually, we're offering a promotion, Vote 2024, where people will get a free 30-minute ride to get to and from the poll site. And for voting early, that's imperative because, as you said earlier, Jen, your early voting site is not always the same as your election day site, and they are more spread out in the city. So there are fewer of those, whereas on election day, your poll site is normally within 1 or 2 blocks walking distance of your home.
So, Nicole, let me cut you off here for a second and say that when it comes to getting to the polls, obviously the challenge is on election day. Everybody knows where to go, but early voting, no.
Right, right. So, what I was saying earlier is talking about visiting, find my poll site.vote.nyc is a great resource. Also, on our scooters, you can scan the QR code directly connected to When We All Vote, and you can make a vote plan there. And that will also get you the information you need to find your early voting poll site as well as your election day poll site. In addition to that, the Board of Elections has been sending mail to every registered voter. I received my piece, and it tells you your early voting site, the dates and the times for early voting, as well as giving you a fast pass that you can just scan, and get started, get your ballot, and head out the door. So it makes it really quick.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to always read your mail from the Board of Elections. That's going to tell you all you need to know. And again, that website is findmypollsite.vote.nyc, or you can scan the QR code. Our vehicles are wrapped with When We All Vote, highlighting our partnership, and it will help you make a vote plan.
Yeah. And Beth, let me bring you in here. I mean, you got to be absolutely proud of the fact that this mobilization effort is going forward, and not just the mobilization effort is going forward, but honestly to be able to see the results on the other side with so many people becoming more politically aware and at the same time engaged.
Absolutely. So, when we all vote, we were founded by Mrs. Obama in 2018, and we are on a mission to increase participation in each and every election, to close the race and age voting gap, and to change culture around voting. And we are so honored and excited to be working with organizations like the Bronx Alumni Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. For me, this one is a personal one. And I'm just so excited to see the great work that's happening on the ground. This activation and outreach is a part of our larger national Parties at the Polls program, where we are bringing community action and celebration together to encourage people to make a plan to vote and then ultimately to vote, because we know when we make voting joyful, when we make it a celebration, we actually see action. So that's really exciting. The other thing I want to say is that we know, so right now, voter registration deadlines are here and have passed in many states for folks to take that action. But early voting has begun, and this is the real time for folks to ensure that you're making a plan to vote and voting early. Specifically, that looks like, one, when are you voting? Are you going to vote early, or are you going to vote on election day? 2, how are you voting? Are you going to vote by mail? Or are you going to go in person? And 3, who are you voting with? So one of the things we say is build your voting squad. Can you reach out to 3 people to vote with you and to also make a plan alongside you? And bonus points for voting early in that process. So that's really what all of this is about. And we know that partnerships like Lime to the Polls are such helpful tools when we're looking to overcome barriers to voting. We know that there are a number of reasons why people may not vote. That includes not having a ride or a way to get to the polling place. So a partnership like Lime to the Polls allows folks to easily have a way to get to their polling place. We also know sometimes voters may think their vote doesn't matter. So organizations like the Bronx Alumni Chapter reaching out and saying, your vote matters. I'm inviting you to vote. I want to see you vote, and I want to celebrate you for making your voice heard, makes a huge difference. And the last thing we know is folks may not have the details about how to vote. Where is your polling place? Is your early polling place different than your regular polling place? What are the deadlines? So we share a lot of information. You can find out more information at weall.vote/hub, scanning the QR codes on all of those Lime scooters, and reaching out to trusted organizations like Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the Bronx Alumni Chapter to get your questions answered, and then share that accurate information with your community so that we can make sure that no one doesn't vote because they don't know how.
Yeah, Beth, thank you so much for letting us know. And obviously, we will find out in just a short amount of time how many people actually came out to the polls. But the reality is you guys will, ladies, I should say, will not be guilty of not doing your job of really getting people out there. It's been a pleasure having you all with us, and congratulations on the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Glad to have you.
One last shameless plug. Make
Yes.
sure that everyone comes out to our party at the polls on Tuesday, October 29th, which is Vote Early Day at the Sotomayor Center from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We will be there in full effect.
There you go. The shameless plug has been given. All right. Come to the end of